Welcome to the Servant Leaders Mindset Podcast, where we are changing lives through servant leaders. Up next.
Yeah, I really struggled with why did I survive? And I also realized that since I'm still here, there is more for me to do, which doesn't mean it doesn't take away from anyone else's life that didn't, but it's just there's more for me to accomplish, and that's really when I had that realization. I was like, I need to write my book to help other women get through those difficult things, to realize that there there's still work for them to do as well.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Dr. Lena Holmes, and this is the Servant Leaders Mindset Podcast. I want you to put your seatbelts on as I prepare you to hear this extraordinary story by a young woman by the name of Nicole Gibson. Nicole is a biomechanical engineer and founder of Dynamically Crafted, a business where she helps others with finding personal resilience and healing through faith-based strategies. She recently authored a book about her story as a survivor of traumatic brain injury. Welcome to the show, Nicole.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
First, I'd like to start out by asking you, how did being biracial have an impact? Now, this is before the accident, on your life in terms of your self-image, your self-esteem
It
as a person.
definitely, yeah, I definitely struggled growing up. I grew up in a very predominantly white suburb, and growing up, like you said, my dad's black, my mom's white. I really struggled to find a fit because I always looked different, but my mom continued to encourage me to see myself as the beautiful black woman that I will be. So I always wondered, why do I look different? Why, like, I just always felt out of place, and I felt my home life was a little different than everybody else's. And it also caused me to really jump in between friend groups, really just never find my fit. Granted, I did have a few very like nice people that always like tried to make me feel welcome, but I never truly felt like I found a fit, which you'll see in my book impacted me really into my adulthood, especially with recovery.
Absolutely. Yeah, that had a major role. It's almost like it set the foundation, and then the accidents pretty much compounded these feelings, it seems. So
Right.
let's talk a little bit more about your book, which is titled Shattered into Grace, a memoir of traumatic brain injury recovery, faith, and empowerment. Could you take our audience back to the day of the accident? What happened that day? And what this was about 10 years ago that this happened?
Yeah, about 13 years ago in November.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, take us back to the accident and explain, tell our audience, put them there,
Uh,
what happened.
Yeah, so I had just got back from a NSBE conference, National Society of Black Engineers, my first NSBE conference. I really was starting to finally feel like I was fitting in. I found this great group of friends that I could relate to, found my major that I felt like, oh, this is exactly what I want to do with my life. And um, actually, I'll start off by saying from that Monday morning, I have zero memory. So, really, the accident is what I'm going to tell you right now from that initial just accident. I've been told I don't remember it at all, which I can go into more later why I think I don't have any memory of it. I think it's more of a protection to help with my recovery. But so that morning after I was getting ready to deliver my very first big project with my friend, and we were standing on the corner waiting for the light to change when a car drove up on the sidewalk and hit us both from behind. I suffered from seven fractures to my skull, resulting in a severe traumatic brain injury and a fractured fibula. And really that completely shifted everything for me. I know the other question that often gets asked is what happened to my friend. My friend, it's interesting. The engineer in me is going to kick in a little bit because it's interesting to see the dynamics, because since she does stand a foot shorter than me, her head didn't collide with the windshield like mine did. So she suffered with injury more from the waist down. So both her knees, I believe she had an MCL and an ACL tear, pretty much had to be reconstructed. But the downfall of that is that she has all memory. So
Mm,
she remembers walking in the hospital and seeing me completely unconscious. And almost, so we both had severe injuries, but to different extents.
that's interesting. And then it took about, they told you it would take about 10 years for recovery, correct?
Yeah, yep, that's correct. And really, while I was physically back, I would, I would say I was physically, for the most part, recovered after 5 to 6 years. I would say my emotional recovery took the 10 years that they estimated.
Interesting. So, can you tell us what your spiritual life was like at that time? What were you thinking when the accident happened? Did you even reflect on God and can God get me out of this? Can God help me heal and those kinds of things? What were your thoughts about where were you spiritually in terms of your formation?
Yeah, yeah. So going to or in prior to the accident, when growing up, my parents, as a family, we would go to church every Sunday. But I would say the relationship with God was very casual. We go to church every Sunday. Besides that, really didn't. I I never picked up a Bible besides Bible study or in church. I really didn't do we prayed every once in a while before meals. My mom would pray with us before bed, but nothing too I wouldn't say my relationship with God had really been developed. Then going to Marquette, which is the Jesuit university, I had to take a theology course my freshman year, and I thought, oh, this will be great, like I'll be able to learn more about the God that I say I believe in. But it was a huge mental shift for me because I went into this classroom with a bunch of other kids that grew up Catholic, grew up really reading the Bible and really studying the Bible. And I remember sitting there in my first group discussion, really like just it just felt so cold to me because I just felt like I didn't understand. Like it wasn't the God that I thought that I knew. And so it really just threw me and also really challenged my belief in the Bible. Not my belief in God. I knew God existed, but the Bible, because they really focused on kind of the things that can be seen as very negative in the Bible. And when we were being so new to seeing those things called out, it really made me question it. So I was struggling going into the accident. Then the accident happened, and really I just became angry. I really didn't understand why God would do this to me or why he would put me through something like that when I struggled so hard to fit in and find my place going right before the accident.
So, would you say you were angry at God? Yes.
Yes, I was very angry at God.
Okay. And during your recovery process, you had dreams, you had goals, as most people your age would, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so at that point, it seems that it made you question, will I be able to achieve these goals? And so on. And it was amazing to me was, okay, this is the servant leader's mindset. So this is really all about mindset and how you evolved and how you changed over time and how your mindset changed. But take us back to the old mindset and talk about how you saw yourself as you were recovering and what was your self image like.
Yeah, definitely. After what I would say the accident really made me, everyone always asks, am I the person I was before the accident? And my answer for that is I really don't remember who I was before the accident, besides knowing that, yes, I struggled growing up. I knew like I struggled with who I was but personality wise, there are still like little puzzle pieces that I don't truly know that girl anymore. So then when the accident happened, I like knew I need to rebuild who I was, but also knew I had all these dreams and things that I wanted to accomplish and needed to accomplish. But how do I do that while I'm trying to really recover from these injuries and emotional damage that I have now? So I just felt like I was angry at God, so I felt like I had to achieve all these things on my own. And that almost pushed me more and more and more to really just work hard and try to do everything I could to find myself, find my happiness. And really with that happiness, I also leaned into a lot of the negative relationships like I detail in my book. shows also I really didn't have the self-worth that I had now that I've started really building my relationship with God and realizing that I'm healed. I am worthy of so much more than I thought that I gave myself credit for, I would say before. So really I would say after the accident it was that push that like, okay, God, like obviously God abandoned me. That's how I felt. So I need to push to get to heal on my own. But also in that trying to do it on my own, I didn't truly respect myself.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that answered the question.
Yes, you did. In fact, I want to just say, as I told you before we got started, that I would highly recommend the book. I don't highly recommend books. Sometimes I'll recommend books, but I highly recommend the book if you are a person that in the audience that is really not sure about your identities, particularly your identity in Christ, and also trying to do and evolve on your own. And what it seemed to me when reading the book to understand what you brought out, and you did such a great job. The writing is amazing. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. It's a real page turner. You always want to know what's going to happen next. Secondly, also, it seems as though you were always looking at the glass half empty instead of the glass half full.
Yeah.
So as you were going along, you obviously have a very ambitious personality type. So you were working along, but you never could see your achievements as you were going along. You were always looking at what you didn't have rather than
Yeah.
what you did accomplish. And you talk about in the book that, you go to therapy and so on, but that didn't seem to be the real turning point in your life. So explain to me. So you talk about your friendship with Judy and Dora and how that had an impact, all these little silent ways in which the Holy Spirit was coming into your life, not
Mhm.
forcing you to do anything, but just really kind of dropping these little seeds as they came. And again, understanding, and what your book does very well, is understanding that everything with God is a process.
Yep.
It does not happen overnight. It's not we wake up and, everything's okay and boy, that was a bad nightmare and so let's go on. So let's talk. And the thing about your honesty in the book about, I mean, some seriously intimate details about your life that most people, I've read a lot, would not, I don't think would be as brutally honest as you are in the book, and how you just lay it all out there, very transparent about what you did and and there were some times that were pretty shameful, but at the same time you admit you talk about it. Most people would not. If you could
Yeah,
just kind of
definitely.
summarize what, you don't have to go into the great detail, but how did it take you to the point where you started choosing the wrong men, just the wrong relationships, even the wrong friends as females and so on?
Yeah, yeah. So I'll start off by saying that the big thing that a lot of people I think miss with traumatic brain injuries is they do have, besides the physical, is the emotional impact. And I'll start off by saying that because I really, really did not have the self-worth or the self-respect. I just always, my sadness reflected in me choosing the wrong relationships because I was trying to seek this happiness in the wrong areas, which resulted in me finding anybody that would reach or try to be my friend or try to be there for me, no matter the circumstances or the million other bad things that happened besides that, I'd still be seeking their acceptance when really it wasn't their acceptance that I should have been seeking to begin with. So yes, that always resulted in having those negative relationships. But you mentioned Judy and Dora; those two women continue to stand by my side, even when I would make these stupid decisions or put these stupid people in my path. They like continue to have my back throughout the whole thing, dropping sermons my way, telling me to pray, and like they truly were placed in my life by God for a reason.
Excellent. So that's a good segue into my next question. So there's this turning point in your life that
Mhm.
happens when you start watching a church online. When I guess it was Judy that sent you a video of this pastor talking about pain and that pain being a gift from
Mhm.
God. How did that switch your mindset, change your viewpoint change your perspective on being angry at God to being open to the fact that maybe this is a gift and maybe God has a different perspective on this?
Yeah, before you said I was looking at things with the glass half full, and that's 100% right. And then this sermon really helped me to switch and start looking at, wow, like, even though these things that really negatively impacted me and could be seen as a bad thing did happen, look at all the great things that I've still been able to accomplish and still been able to do. And would I have still done these things without the accident? We never know. Would it be a completely different way? We don't know, but everything happens for a reason. And the sermon really helped me to look around and see, like, I have a roof over my head. I have these two pets that are pretty chill, move around the country with me. I've got this career that's just blossoming. I continue to get great reviews even when I don't feel like I'm doing a great job. Like, it really helped me to see that things really are not as negative as I portray them to be, and I need to give myself more credit. So it was just a light bulb. And as I to all the people that are sitting there like, oh yeah, 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 like I've been in your place where it's like, oh, like there is no bright light, and I can't say what it will be for that next person that really just turns on a light bulb, and I wish I could, but I think it for I think the big thing is to just be open and be open to the realization that things are going to be okay.
And talking about that dark period in your life, and just like life in general, life is all about ups and downs, that
Yes.
there's always these ups and downs, and surprises and so on. But you share in your book about another tragic event that happened in your life that when I was like, oh no, when I was reading it, I was like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
how do you get through this? Someone you fell in love with also suffered traumatic brain injury and he doesn't make it. And so this was a very like a really high point in your life. And then it's just like, and then it just bottoms out again. Again, so much like life. This is the pattern a lot of times of life.
Yeah.
We're always going to lose people and so on. I'm not going to go into details because I'll let them read the book and figure that out. But why do you think, how did you come away from that situation thinking, why did God spare you? And how did that resonate with you in terms of your thinking?
Yeah, I really struggled with why did I survive, but why didn't didn't well, you'll see in the book, but why was it my story different? I realized that one, being a Christian doesn't say life is going to be easy. Like you said, it's a roller coaster. Be like believing in God and following and really creating that relationship with him does make it a little lighter, and not as difficult to get through the challenges. But and I also realized that since I'm still here, there is more for me to do, which doesn't mean it doesn't take away from anyone else's life that didn't, but it's just there's more for me to accomplish. And that's really when I had that realization. I was like, I need to write my book to help other women get through those difficult things, to realize that there there's still work for them to do as well.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking about as I was reading your book was that a couple things where it seems like you were having a little post traumatic stress disorder, meaning uh, maybe that always looking at the glass half empty, you had a predisposition to that, but that the accident really again compounded those feelings. In addition to that, as you come out of that and all of the relationships that you talk about so vividly, did you come to the conclusion that maybe you were putting too much faith in having the acceptance of of people, or particularly men, as opposed to having that affirmation from God? Did you
One
come
a
to that
hundred
conclusion?
percent. A
Okay.
hundred percent. And that's why you'll see, even it literally take a whole year where I just focus on me. No, I didn't have any relationships. I really didn't have any interest. I just focused on my going to church on Sunday, doing Bible readings, getting myself back into shape, just what made me and my soul like feel whole, which was really seeking that relationship, seeking that acceptance through God. So, but I, yeah, so I definitely realized that. But then it got to a point where I realized, okay, am I ready to get into a relationship? But if I am, it must be approved, or it must be like what God has planned. So I've started including him in every single relationship that I've had since then.
So the book sort of ends with this relationship with someone named Marty, and Marty is a business person. And
Yes.
so, how does your relationship with him help you to discover your identity and purpose in life? What did that add to the picture?
Yeah. So Marty was the first man that I ever had in my life to positively challenge me. A lot of these other relationships, it was never like if I did or said something that they didn't like, either it would be more like emotionally abusive, or they would just agree with me to like move on. But Marty really continued to challenge me and see how I can be better, how I can achieve these things that I believe God has always had in store and plan for me. He pushed me to start physically going to church rather than virtually going to church. We did Bible studies together. Like, God has been included in our relationship since day one. And I think that's the huge difference between our relationship and my relationship with other men. And he respects me in a way where we're able to challenge, like I said, challenge each other and have fun, but also know that we want to continue to grow each personally, but also in our relationship.
Yeah, you talk about how you went from just doing the virtual thing. And I was curious to know, particularly because of your generation and your age group, that many of them have left the church, but they haven't left the faith. They really do believe in God. Can you talk about when and what was the difference between having a virtual experience with church? Because that's some people, that's all they do, right? So, and having actually getting involved in a church, getting in Bible study, and being in community with other Christians.
Yeah, yeah.
What was
So
the difference?
when that first church service that like we went to, that I really felt like just walking in and having being able to stand and worship with other Christians, I always say like I'll feel these tingles in my arms, and just like kind of like a tingly hug when I feel that God really is trying to make me see something. And when I felt that, it was like, okay, this is nice. This is what I've been seeking. And just to go every Sunday, and I I feel that when I go to church. And I also think that it's important. Well, I've found that the more and more I go to church, the more I get things dropped on my mind and really help me set up for the week. It's not just that message that the pastor is saying. And that's what I think drives a lot of my generation away, is that sometimes the messages get, maybe it's against or not exactly what people in my generation want to hear or feel is aligned with God or Christianity. That's what I've heard a lot too. But I think the more important thing about church is, one, the community, and two, getting the message that God meant for you to receive during that. And it may not be exactly what came from the pastor's mouth. It may be something else with that Bible verse that you're meant to hear. But I think that's why I enjoy going to church every Sunday, is because I get way more out of it than just whatever the pastor is saying up on that podium, which is also important. But I think when you go with the goal or desire to continue to build your relationship with God, using the community around you, and also what message is he trying to send to you. I get a lot out of church going, and that's why I go every Sunday.
Yeah, and I'd like to reiterate too that you said you felt the tingles and so on. It's really, we are the body of Christ, and it's designed that way for interaction in a physical, not necessarily a church, because we are the church, but there's something about when people gather together because of the fact that we are human beings who have, we are animated by our spirits. And so when those spirits get together, there is something that happens that may not be tangible, but also has an impact on our emotions, and also sets us up for having an experience with God that we cannot have by ourselves. But you can't discover that if you never go. And you
Exactly.
just turn on the video. I've seen some virtual services where I really felt the emotions, but it's still, that's not the way God designed it. He really
Right.
designed it for us to have fellowship with one another. I don't think God has any problem with people watching virtual churches, but if
No.
that's all they do, then I think they're missing out on a very important aspect of being a part of the body of Christ. So let's switch over to you. So you started this company, Dynamically Crafted. What is the mission of the business, and what exactly will you be doing in order to achieve the mission?
Yeah, definitely. So my mission with Dynamically Crafted is to really help other women heal from trauma, heal from self-challenging, just self-challenge or life-changing events. That's a better way to put it. And really continue to find their self-confidence and worthiness. And so what I've been starting doing is I do have a blog where I try to pair events that are happening in my life and then how I feel God is working in my life, or how I'm trying continuing to build my relationship with God, because it's a continuous journey. And really, my goal with that is for other people and women and to read that and reflect on how they're kind of how my book, well, exactly how my book is. Really read it, read my journey and reflect and try to help grow or find what they're meant to understand or change in their life. So that's where I'm starting. And then my goal is to then drift that into also coaching other women and speaking at events to help encourage other women and grow in their relationship with God and their confidence and faith.
I'm so glad you wrote the book. I think it's going to help a lot of people, particularly for those that are in your generation, but any generation, because as I was reading it, I got stuff out of it too. To kind of, it's almost like when you read it, it's like looking in through a window to somebody else's life, but it reflects back on just our humanity, no matter where you are in your journey in life. Thank you for writing the book. If people want to buy the book or they want to learn more about you, what would be the best way to reach you?
Yeah, definitely. So the book is available really anywhere you like to buy a book. The place that I've of course been sending most people is Amazon. You just type in Shattered into Grace and you'll find it there. You can also, if you go to dynamicallycrafted.com, that's my website, that'll have all the links where you can buy my book and also more information about me and contact information. And that's
Excellent, excellent.
dynamicallycrafted.com.
Very good. So it was a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be a guest on the show and sharing your story.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.